Okay, so as a part of the deliverables for this project, which is the fall prevention project, we are required to create a schema or a table that will host the master data set. Now, to do this, we have created these codes. So these codes have been created in two formats based on how it will be executed. So one can be executed using MySQL. The other one can be executed using Python. So first of all, I'm going to go over the MySQL code and then over the Python code. So the MySQL code, so over here in this line number one, it's saying that it's instructing the code to create a fall database, so fall prevention database. So it could be any other name, but here it's saying that fall prevention database, for example. And then it's telling the code, the software or the program to use this database to create this table, which is the master data set. So in creating this table, the table needs to have columns. So everything here is a direct representation of the various columns that are in the master sheet that have been put together using the other sets of code that have been created. So the index or the first column is the ID column, and it's automatically incremental. So which means that as data is being entered into the various columns, the numbers will be going up instead of down, or however, you cannot go in the reverse. It has to go incrementally. And the second column heading is the name, original name, which, and then also says varchar 2225 default null. Now, what this means is that this column is allowed to take variable characters, different type of characters, and it can take up to 255 characters. And the default, as it is set up, it can be empty if there is no name or original name. The next column head is the user email. So per the data set we've collected, we realize that almost every participant has an email. So this column requires the participant to enter an email. Now the characters in that email could be at max 255. Now the not null means that you cannot leave that column or that row or that space empty. It has to, it's like a requirement that it has to, and the email address needs to be entered in this. The join time. The timestamp also helps the database to record whatever time is being entered into it in the proper time format. And it's allowed to take 6 characters, and it's also not null. The leave time, also timestamp, just like the first one. The default is null, which means if it's not entered, no problem. It's more important in terms of recording what time the participant entered the program or started the session. And the guests, also the column head, the guest, the variable characters, you could take 20 characters, and the default is null. Meeting ID variable characters, 225, default is null. The topic, the start time, the same format as this one, and allowed to take 6 characters, and it's also null. So it is exactly the same thing as you would see in the master data sheet. So that this will be like a host, like you're just copying the master data set and just pasting it into this table so that it can be stored and then subsequently used, for an analysis, extracting certain information about a specific participant. So you have on the master sheet, you have the duration minutes of Zoom meeting. This is int. Int means numbers, so integers. The data in this column cannot be stored in anything else but integers. And it's allowed to take at most 6 characters. The default setting of that is null. So these are all the kind of sort of the rules for each column and how data is allowed to be stored in these columns. Likewise, the duration minutes total also stored in int. 12 characters, default is null. Subsequently, the same exact sequence as it is stored in the master sheet. You look at the master sheet, this has to be a direct replica of what the master sheet looks like. So because we're essentially creating the master sheet, but in the MySQL database. So you have the street address, the variable characters, just like the city, the country, the zip code, the state, province, the phone number, the country name, variable characters, emergency contact. Now, when it comes to this section or this part, what we are trying to do here, the original information about, the original heading for this column on the master sheet is actually in case of emergency, XYZ, call XY number. So I just created this key here to sort of explain what this means, because MySQL will not allow, or does not allow a column head of this length, because this is really long. So we created a short form, a key. So this here represents this. Now the same thing applies to fitness consent. So we just essentially says that ask the client to, or the participant, sorry, to confirm that he or she is in good health to participate in the program. Likewise, the safety consent, that the program is going to take responsibility. Sorry, the program is going to make sure that the participant understand the risks associated with the work they're doing, or sorry, their participation in the program in case of injuries and accidents. And also this part also has to do with the privacy, the program informing the participant that whatever information that's gathered from them will be stored properly and not just given all over the place. Now, this part of the code is saying that the code should select from this master data sheet that is existing maybe in an Excel and copy everything into this database as values. So that with that, then everything that's been stored in the master sheet that's been created in Excel can be copied into this MySQL database. So that is the first form of executing the code in MySQL. The second form is also executing the code using the Python, directly from Python. So over here, first of all, you create, what this represents essentially is sort of loading the libraries that will be used to read the various languages or the codes that will be written in this program or in this code. So you load and for this program, you will need pandas, you need SQL Alchemy, you need Create Engine, and so forth and so on, as you can see here. Now, what this says here is that you're telling the code to look into the env file and copy all of the credentials that are needed to connect, to make this make sense. Now, the reason you're not putting this here is because it's for privacy reason, right? So you have this code, it could be open to anyone. They could take the information and, use it to access the database behind your back, essentially. So you create a .env, which will hide the credentials from unauthorized users. So this is the env file. So the host name, it could be at this, if it's online, it could be at this IP address, or it could be a local host, whichever is chosen or decided upon. The username, the authorized user, the password, which is this, and then the database. So say you're creating a database name, you've created a database with this name, for prevention project. And then so that when you're reading this, whatever is written here, automatically this will load it into this. And when you come down, you're telling it, in case there is a table that has that name, because you're trying to create a table now. So first of all, you're saying whatever table that exists in this database you're trying to create must be dropped. So you want to clean it. You want to clean it up. You want to make sure that everything is set before you start the work. In case any table exists, remove it. Now, the next thing you're trying to do is load the various env files and variables to have to sort of set up the environment before you can start the program. Now, what you're trying to do at this with this code is you're trying to connect to the virtual machine or the local host or wherever you want to host your data set, because that will essentially be the location where you will create the tables, right? So that is why these codes are here, and all of these you have here are up here as well. So the information that's here is what is going to be used here, this code, to create to create a connection between your system and where you will be hosting, because that's where you will be working. And at this line, you're first of all telling the code to, in case this very table exists, master data set participation, in case it exists, remove it, drop this table. So you create a variable using this so that now this table is equals to this. And you're telling the data set or the database, if you're telling the location where you just connected to, in case there's a table of this nature there, drop it. And then at this point, you're now creating a new table database. Sorry, you're creating a new database, which is fall prevention database. And then you're given an instruction that in that database, create this table if it does not exist. Now you've already removed this table, so now you can have the option to create it. If you do not remove it, it will be a problem of duplication. And sometimes you may not be able to do it. Or, create the table. And subsequently, you go through the same process as we went through with the MySQL execution process. The same table you have here is the same table you have here. So you go through the entire process as it is. And now when you finish writing all of these, or when you finish creating the various columns, then you execute it so that the table is created. And that's why this is there, to run the query you've executed above, or you've written above, sorry, so that the table is created. And then you run this extra code, the connection string table, to make sure that you verify if the various tables that you executed have actually been done. Now, let me just explain the primary key and the secondary key. Now, in the future, in case you want to, say, extract specific information about a participant, you can do that by calling that information using the primary key or the secondary key. Now, considering that almost all participants coming with an email, it is highly recommended that the user email is used to essentially extract or pull down information about a specific participant for, say, analysis purposes, or, say, gathering their records, or whatever that is desired to be done by the program coordinators. So basically, this is the synopsis of what this code is doing. So in short, this code is replicating the master sheet that has been created in Excel, but now it's creating a similar table in, say, a database using MySQL, basically. And the execution process could be done either directly in MySQL with this MySQL code, or it could be done from Python and then connecting to the virtual machine or the local host and then executing the code. Thank you very much.